capping the ministers?
Yes, to a large extent, but we also should ask ourselves to what end? Why are we capping it in the first place? There's this notion that if you cap it, you save costs. You save
Is it
money.
not true?
It doesn't necessarily follow that way. You can actually reduce the number of ministers from, let's say, 50 to 25, and your budget would actually explode just by virtue of the scope of activities and so forth and so on. So it doesn't always lead. So if we are capping it to save costs, we should bear that in mind. It doesn't necessarily translate into
it's
that.
Not necessarily to save costs. It's also to just unburden the president. Right? When you talk to a lot of, when we had meetings with the various people who have held this position at the highest level, it's clear that they are under tremendous pressure for patronage jobs, right? And as long as there is no limit, it's difficult to tell the last person that I can't give you this job. So in a way, sometimes these presidents are begging for their hands to be tied. So if a person came to you and said, look, I want a job, the president's like, look, I can't appoint you, I'm already 59.
Okay.
That's it. So sometimes we have to help our leaders to really say no.
And Doc, don't forget that
to this kind of pressure.
Maintain a minister is expensive.
It is expensive.
So whilst it's not, you can have other government appointees. I feel like it sends a signal that if you have just 59 ministers, and all the people who support them will also be fewer, right?
No, all I'm saying is that we need to strike a balance. If you move too far to the other extreme, you also have a burnout among ministers. Yes, and I've actually heard some complain that they're overwhelmed.
But you can change them. If they are tired, give somebody
No, it's not that they're tired. We're talking about systems that they work with. One minister, because they have maybe previously, let me use the example of Liberia, for instance. Not that it's the best, but I remember in Liberia, they have two deputy ministers. One is administrative, one is technical. That then gives the minister the time to perform the way they should.
Oh, okay.
We don't have that. And at this point, we have so many ministers with a single deputy minister. That then places a lot of pressure on the minister. So let's strike a balance.
But the Liberians have chief directors.
They do.
So what does the chief director do? Because if I have an administrative deputy minister and I have a technical chief director, minister,
the chief directors, I forget the details, but there's a level below which you don't have policy influence. Ministers have policy influence, whether they are for technical, administrative, they can sit in certain meetings that the chief director cannot sit in. So there are those nuances that sometimes you bring to the table.
I suspect you agree with the capping.
I know, I agree with the capping. I do think that because what has bloated it up a bit is also the question of the regional ministers. I'm not a big fan of it, but we have 16 to deal with, and they have to kind of accommodate that in some regard, but yes.
And also capping the size of parliament at 276.
Akoto even said 100. I don't know if you remember that. The later
I think the constitution says 140. I would have preferred 140, but
as a minimum.
But I don't think you have the courage to remove somebody's seat. So for now, keep it at 276. Because it will be a political suicide to say, we are having to remove your hometown from it. It's going to cost you. So cap it.
So there's some pragmatism.
I mean, look, the U.S. Congress hasn't expanded in size since 1911.
Wow.
Yeah. The population in 1911, I think, was around 90 million. It's now, in the vicinity
341.
of 300 and something.
Yeah.
There's something you said which
kept the same number.
Good. You said you were supposed to do actionable recommendations. You have a recommendation that says study and consider proportional representation to improve inclusion. I'm not sure you put it in the same way, but you didn't make a hard proposal for proportional representation.
No, I mean, because we weighed the issue. I mean, there is certainly, a consensus on the committee, or at least a majority in favor of the idea in principle. Now, to actually implement it in the Ghanaian context, we have been with first past the post since colonialism. Since the 1950s, Ghanaians are familiar with it. Our systems are all set up in that way now. And there are so many different variants of proportional representation on offer when you look at the options. And they tend also to be associated with parliamentary systems, right?
Yes.
So we said, look, we have a presidential system. There are some, Chile and I think Costa Rica, which are presidential, that have proportional representation. Let's study these things. There are so many different ways of slicing this cake. We as a committee, given the time that we have, we cannot settle on any particular way of doing this. So we're saying it's worth studying. Almost every committee from SKB Asante Committee to CRC1 said the same thing. Please study this thing and let's make...
We don't have enough information to implement it.
Well, so it's just an admission.
Because it's a complete change of system.
It is, exactly.
So it's not the kind of thing you can just
recommend. You can just say,
you need more time to study.
We need more time. And especially as it works in presidential systems. Right?
We'll take a shortish break. When I come back, we have more. I'm going to get into the NDPC development plans and some of the proposals there. This is the point of view. We're live looking at the constitutional review efforts and the work that the committee just did. Stay with us.
Oh, another payment through Stanbic. Smooth, as always.
Imagine making or collecting all payments without leaving your chair. Sounds like magic, right? Nah, it's Stanbic Pay.
Darling, can you please help with the bills, especially address school fees?
From school fees to utilities, the government and statutory payments to investments, insurance payments, Hajj payments, and more.
Mommy, my fees has been paid.
Just log on to Stanbic Pay and you're set for life.
Why back so early? Please tell me everything has been paid.
No Stanbic account, no queues, no stress, no last-minute panic.
Cherish your time and live happier in safety and convenience. Visit stanbicbank.com.gh or call to get started.
The Soweto Secondary Schools Wesco Alumni Association invites all alumni to its annual all-year groups Thanksgiving and Remembrance Service. There will be remembrance of the departed PACAs and also the launch of the 67th Speech and Prize Giving Day. The date, Sunday the 18th of January 2026. Time, it's 2 p.m. Venue, Cedar Mountain Assemblies of God Church, East Legon. Contact your year group president and register your attendance now. Semper Cum Optimus, always with the best.
We're still looking at constitutional review. My guests are Professor Kwasi Prempeh, Dr. Nimoy Thompson, Oliver Bakavomawo. Let me come now to what concerns economic development. We summarized the recommendations and development broadly. And when I come to NDPC, for example, anchor national development planning constitutionally. All right? I don't think I have a problem with that.
No.
Align budget and legislation with the national development plan. So, for example, it says to ensure meaningful mainstreaming of the national development plan into policy and lawmaking, the committee recommends that the constitution be amended as follows. Article 106 be amended to provide that every bill introduced in Parliament should be accompanied by a memorandum which A, indicates how the proposed legislation advances and is aligned with the national development plan and the directive principles of state policy. And B, where the bill materially departs from the national development plan, expressly identifies the nature of the departure and provides reasonable justification for this. Where the bill is inconsistent with or materially departs from the National Development Plan, the bill shall be referred to the National Development Planning Commission for comments on its coherence with the National Development Plan. And I see this runs through a lot.
Yes.
Article 179 should be amended to provide that all government appropriations, including the annual budget and the medium-term expenditure framework, should indicate how public funds are to be applied to advance and objectives, priorities, and targets set out in the National Development Plan. So basically, they are trying to elevate the National Development Plan. That should make you happy.
Very happy, but not just that. The fact that they've given the directive principles of state policy the prominence that we had always wanted it to have. I always said, even before they submitted their report, that if there's one thing in the Constitution that every Ghanaian must read, is the directive principles of state policy. I think it's such a close to perfect document. And so much so that we quoted, this is the cover of the 40-year National Development Plan. and Article 36.2, and I love that because it captures the essence of the work of the committees also. It says, the most secure democracy is the one that assures the basic necessities of life for its people as a fundamental duty. This is not known to the public. I think it's a kind of a creed that we need to live by. And when they started having military coups in the Sahel and so forth and so on, I thought this actually had to go international because they felt their democracies had let them down. And here we are saying that as its fundamental duty, it should lead to improvements in the living standards of the people. Now, we have the basis of long-term national. They do use the terms medium-term, long-term. Yeah. Usually you have the long-term, and out of that you have your medium-term, and then from the medium-term, you have your annual plan with the budgets and so forth and so on. There are so many of those things that we are already doing, except that they're now giving us somewhat different perspectives. So for example, you cannot, as a ministry, MDA or an MMDA, take your budget to the Ministry of Finance or without first bringing your medium-term and annual action plan to NDPC for verification to ensure that it is in line with the government of the day's development priorities. That's the practice now. That was the rule, but it wasn't really enforced. But last year, we really started cracking the whip to the point where it actually created panic. And I even went a step further and said, listen, if you don't submit your plan for verification by NDPC, I'm not even going to release your third quarter releases. So it really made them to sit up. And so as I said here, I actually have almost all the 38 MDAs, I think with the exception of 3. I have all their plans here on my phone. I have almost all the plans for the 261 district assemblies, with the exception of about 8 or so. And then the same thing with the RCCs. People often forget the existence of the RCCs, the Regional Coordinating Council. They're also required to prepare plans. All of them should go through NDPC for verification, certification, before the Minister of Finance would even grant you hearing for your budget.
So you agree completely with these? Something I find interesting though, Article 34 should be amended or to begin operational effect by requiring political parties and candidates no later than 6 months before a general election to prepare, publish, and submit to the NDPC a program or manifesto. So basically, manifestos must always submit to you.
No, those ones, I read those, and I have a bit of a problem with that. But those are operational details. Yeah. What we are actually doing now, without even the work of this commission, is preparing what we call the Policy and Legislative Almanac.
All right.
We've been working on it. This was since PV's time. But we thought we should develop that to guide political parties in the preparation of their manifestos. A lot of them tend to, but it's not compulsory, but it helps them to better understand the policy environment in which they prepare their manifestos. If you go through the manifestos, you see that some of them even make proposals for things that have already done by their own previous government that they weren't even aware of. So we have this policy and legislative almanac that's going to guide them for them to know that this has already been done. And for me, I'm passionate because don't forget, at one point, I was the head of research for the CPP, and I had to lead a manifesto preparation. The frustrations of getting information to even do that showed at the time. And then I became Director General, where I then had to lead, people don't know this, but whenever an election ends and the government wins, the manifesto, which is a political party document, must then be translated into a national development document with a policy matrix and so forth to guide that. So I had that experience of that transition. And so I can empathize with the need for political parties. So we have a whole program, a different approach of dealing with both political parties and
so just summarize this point. You feel like the NDPC and the National Development Plan itself need to be given a more sort of elevated place because this is going to be development constitution.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ghanaians have been saying this. I mean, look, we want continuity. We want, plans must continue regardless of regime changes and transitions and the like. So we said, look, and we took a lead from some other countries that have done this quite successfully. Mongolia, for example, has an interesting model where, similar to what we're proposing, the national plan is passed. It is passed with cross-party support in Parliament to get buy-in from the different political players that are represented in Parliament. And once you get that buy-in, then it's easy then to say that, look, political parties, we have a national plan that is law, actually. So make sure that your proposals are aligned, or what you're planning to do are within that framework. It doesn't dictate, it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to have look-alike political parties, everybody doing the same thing, right? The national plan is a huge thing with timelines and all of that, and you can pick which ones you prioritize within the certain framework. It's more, but some countries are moving in that direction, and it's helpful for their development. Some consistency, you see some progress. You don't go 2 years, then backslide and come back and do. So this kind of demand that the public always makes, and when things,
but both of you, the development plan and NDPC will only be elevated and important if its composition makes it independent and competent. So when you
mean composition, you mean composition of the commission.
So what I'm trying to say is that the assumption is that the NDPC and the document they produce is conk. Using Ghanaian, it's conk, using Ghanaian English.
No.
So if you have an English, it's conk. If you have an English, my point is that we are assuming that the NDPC's composition makes it independent and very technocratic.
There's a misconception, and let me use this opportunity to actually explain the structure and functions of the commission.
Don't see this as an attack on you.
No.
I'm making a general statement. I'm saying that we can only make the National Development Plan do what he wants if the National Development Planning Commission is fit for purpose and run by competent people. That's a general fact that's not debatable. So I don't want you to debate. I don't want to comment on that.
No, I completely agree.
So I'm now coming to the point of there's a proposal to amend the composition or membership. So first I want to understand why that amendment of Article 87.
Okay.
Then we can come to him. What's the? Let me read it quickly. Commission, for the purpose of viewers, the committee recommends that Article 87 of the Constitution be amended to provide that the membership of the NDPC includes, and they list about 10 things.
Yes.
Minister responsible for finance and economic planning, governor of BOG, government statistician, head of LUSPA, head of EPA, one academic or established professional with recognized expertise in economic planning, one academic or established professional with recognized expertise in social planning, 2 reps nominated by National House of Chiefs with knowledge in blah, blah, blah. 2 reps of organized labor, civil society. The DG, who shall serve as executive secretary, and an engineer. And then the committee further recommends that appointment under paragraph F, G, H, and I shall be made in a manner that ensures professional competence, independence, and balance. What problem are you solving here?
Exactly.
Thank you.
I think the problem we're solving is the problem you identified originally, which is if we're going to get the plan to do the job we want it to do, it must have buy-in across the political class. And then the process of coming to the plan itself, quite apart from the composition of the commission, right? The process by which the plan is developed must also be such that it has sufficient buy-in from the political class, from society generally, from industry, from just different facets of society. So really, I mean, just not focusing necessarily on the details, which really is not really the point of this. But the idea is that currently, as structured, every one government that comes doesn't feel that they can use the product
of the previous
one if it's not the same party.
That is not true at all.
Right? So some parties come and they're like, well, but we were not part of, we were not on the commission. So why must we feel bound by their product?
See the reason?
So you feel like the composition is one of the reasons why there's that type of...
It is part of it, but also I think more importantly, the process by
But
which
what's the current composition?
the plan.
Do you have this type of people in the commission?
We have some of it.
Let me...
So look at the provision. I'm looking at...
no, I have it here.
3.6.
I put the recommendations of the commission in 3 categories. One is relevant, which is what they've gone, what you discussed, and we're perfectly happy with that. I'm sure there will be
what we just discussed in the past. That one you like.
In terms of, again, I couldn't be happier with the fact that they've given the director principles, which is
the pride of place that it deserves.
Pride of place. Thank you for that, bro, for there. And then director principles of state policy is binding on all political parties
Correct.
at all times.
Yeah.
So it
Love that.
provides the basis. I have no problem with that. So I have that relevant. There are two categories, though, that I have, which is that it's redundant in some respects.
Okay.
For instance, we are told to work with assemblies and so forth and so
already
forth.
working
We
with them.
already do that and more.
Okay.
So that is in. And then the third one, I think, is regressive in some of the recommendations.
Okay.
The 3 R's.
I'm sorry?
Your 3 R's.
The 3 R's.
Relevant, redundant, regressive.
I like
No,
I like that.
redundant,
Wow.
relevant, redundant, and regressive.
I like that.
The relevant part, wholeheartedly
Which we
support.
just did.
Yes. Redundant is telling
Different
us what we
assemblies.
should already do.
Which you already do. Which ones are regressive?
The structure of the
What I just read.
commission, yes. With all the, and I'm glad you went through all that. They are regressive in so many ways. They tie our hands, actually. The existing structure is actually far more flexible and gives us more access to a lot more people. So for instance, I think, by the way, we don't have Minister of Finance and Economic Planning anymore. It's just Minister of Finance. And where the recommendation, I noticed that in some constitutions, the 86 is missing. So from 85, you go to 87. And people tend to miss that. So what they're actually referring to here is Article 86 and not 87, which is the structure of the commission. Yes, and how they go through all the way A to, I don't know if you understand why they have two representatives.
What is the current composition
Now
of
let me take you through that. So
I want to know what problem they are solving.
it's similar, yes, exactly, I'm glad. So there shall be a national planning, the commission chairman, the commission chairman, minister responsible for finance or such of them, the government statistician, the governor of the Bank of Ghana, one representative from each region of Ghana. That was taken out. I don't know if it was an oversight or they deliberately did that, but you cannot do that.
So as we speak, there are 16.
There are 16 members,
Regional
reps.
Regional reps.
And the document itself talks about all development is local. So I was somewhat.
But those regional reps are not. We don't have any qualification.
We write, as chairman, I wrote to the RCCs with criteria.
Correct.
And you'll be amazed.
So every region will give you one person.
Every region, strictly to the criteria. So we have people with masters in math, all sorts of things.
Is it sectoral or just academic? What kind of qualification do you need to be on a regional?
It has to fit within a broader development context. So we are not just looking at economic development. We are looking at social development, institutional governance, international. And we have five.
But I'm just trying to understand, they will not all be the same type of people.
No.
Wonderful. There's room for that, but there's
room for that. But after.
So it's missing here.
No, it's definitely missing that. So you have the governor of the Bank of Ghana, one representative each from the region nominated by the regional coordination. And then here's the most flexible part that this one, the latest recommendation, it says, such other persons as may be appointed by the president having regard to their knowledge and experience of the relevant areas and roles pertaining to development, economic, social, environmental, and spatial planning. This is very flexible.
Repeat that.
Okay, this is
such other person
as may be appointed by the president, having regard to their knowledge and experience of the relevant areas and roles pertaining to development, economic, social, environmental, and spatial planning. What this does is that, and the law also allows us to have what is known as the cross-sectoral planning groups. It opens up, so for instance, here, there's an engineer nominated by Association of Engineers. That massively restricts us. As I said, we just finished the coordinated program. Because of the existing structure, we could gain access to the experience of at least 3 engineers who are not necessarily commissioners, but they are Ghanaians whose expertise we could tap into during the preparation of the coordinated program. Once it was done, they thanked me for giving them the opportunity to serve Ghana. I thanked them, and they went their merry ways without being commissioners, because it also costs something. So we have these subcommittees.
So you feel like what already exists creates enough bandwidth to
it's far more flexible
than what they are proposing.
That's the part of
because they are bringing LUSPA. And I feel like LUSPA is nice.
No.
Or this doesn't exclude LUSPA.
Now, again, it reflects a misunderstanding of how the governance system works. LUSPA exists on the ministry, so you cannot put it directly on the commission. If anything, it should be the ministry that's represented. That they also mention
Land Use and Special Planning Authority.
Yes.
When they are which ministry? Local government.
Not local government. Environment. Yeah, environment. There's also another one for head of environmental.
EPA. No, so I don't think LUSPA is under Ministry of Environment.
No, it is on the ministry, but we actually have LUSPA here.
LUSPA will be under either lands or because it's land use.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yes.
It's not the Minister of Environment. It's under Ministry of
No,
Lands.
but the
Lands and Natural Resources.
It can be under Ministry of
No, the
Lands.
thing is that it's
it's
under
under some
ministry.
ministry,
Yes,
yeah.
it is an MDA. But the point
I
I'm
think
trying
it's
to
local
make here,
government, yes.
no, it cannot be. But let's just leave that detail aside
yeah.
and focus on the principle that you cannot put these MDAs on as commissioners when you have parent ministries there. So EPA, for instance, cannot on itself be represented
Why
in the
not?
commission because there's a higher report to a minister.
But what if the ministers are tired?
Well, no, it does happen. You have to nominate. Bernard.
And Doc, forgive me. Even if they are under a ministry, the ministries are very political.
But
if LUSPA is a technocratic institution,
it is a member now.
Hold on, and we think that LUSPA should be on NDPC. I understand your flexibility point, but I don't see why the fact that they're under a ministry should preclude them from being on the commission if they so would provide some. Because don't forget that LUSPA, one of our biggest problems is our lack of planning.
Yes.
So by land use, it's an authority.
It is an authority. LUSPA is actually part of the commission now, based on the existing structures. EPA will work with them.
So it's an local government ministry.
Yes, but it is a member of the commission in terms of, don't forget, we have the commission, and then we have thematic committees that are open to just about anyone. We also have the cross-sectorial planning.
So they are not excluded from your work already?
Definitely not. But I'm saying that let's not restrict ourselves with these specificities. The specific ones are already done. And then VI, number 6, is the flexible part that allows, for instance, we're able to tap into the experience of 2 retired diplomats and a professor in international relations. They are not commissioners, but we value their input.
So when you bring this new approach, it limits
you severely. And then you ask yourself, an engineer, we have so many types of engineers. Is it a computer engineer? Is it a structural engineer? Is it a civil engineer?
Maybe a financial engineer.
But when we use existing system, and the law of Act 480, 479, actually allows the commission to invite non-members to its meetings. The same way the subcommittees can. So I like the flexibility. I like the existing system as it is now. Once you begin to list these specific things, engineer, then next thing you know, an architect also wants to be there. And then the surveyor wants to be there.
So you've made a great point. You haven't spoken for a while. So you think that the redundancy is in trying to restrict the commissioners.
Yes, and taking away the existing flexibility. The existing flexibility.
I want to actually see that.
I think he considers that regressive, not redundant.
Yes, regressive.
But a critical point about continuity and change in government. It is not always the case. That's the popular perception. Don't forget that we had the 40-year National Development Plan, and that's what people often refer to. But under the NDs and MPP, they also attempted 3 different frameworks. Ghana Beyond Aid, Ghana at 100, and then the framework for 2057. None of them were implemented by the same government over 8 years. So the factors that impede the implementation of plans go beyond transitions. There are major institutional bottlenecks. So I want people to...
Yeah, but I feel like his argument, or at least my understanding of this, is that they feel like, you see, media commission is very effective because it's seen as, and something like PIAC as well, it's not dominated by the executive, right? So they can choose who their chairperson is. So PIAC as well can choose who their chairperson is. A lot of times when an organization is dominated by executive or appointees from the executive, then when there's a new government, they feel like we have to change everybody. I think that's when we're trying to solve.
Let me offer the last explanation, then my brother Oliver will come in. NDPC exists on 2 tiers, political tier, and then the technical administrative tier. Now the political tier, the members are appointed by the president, similar to his ministers. When he leaves with them.
Good.
They are there for the duration of the president. The technical administrative tier is led by the Director General. They serve all governments. They are non-political.
But they are changed when governments also change.
Say that again? No, they are there.
The DG?
The Director General.
But when NDC left, you left?
I left because, let me say, I was politically tainted. People thought because...
I didn't keep you.
I could have stayed. And I need to make this clear.
Okay, the guy who was there when you took over, where is he now? As DG?
When I took over.
So the DG and the Akufo-Addo as
No, but
NDPC.
let me explain something
It's not the
here.
same person.
No. Legally, I could have stayed on because I went through the process and I was interviewed by the Public Services Commission. So I could have stayed. And I voluntarily stayed until October 2017 to make sure that Nanado's program was actually in place. And I remember telling President Mahama that, Mr. President, I want to stay on and see you through Nanado's program. He said, do your best. So I stayed.
The person who was NDPC DG under Akufo-Addo too, is he still the person DG NDPC today?
No, he passed away.
No, Abrampa, but he died before the election.
He died. I don't remember exactly when. Yes. And then there was a technical advisor who acted for a while. Yeah. And then once there was a new government change.
It's a new person.
Yes, but it doesn't, at some point.
So my point is that this distinction between technocratic and administrative may be in theory, but in practice it doesn't exist.
No.
The new government will change the person.
No, someone ought to appoint someone at some point.
That's the thing. So they are trying to solve it by saying that let's make it broad-based so that it's accepted.
But it still doesn't solve anything. At any point in time, a government must appoint people. The appointments are too deep.
Okay, what do you think?
What about the 10?
Let me take Oliver's view on
Say that again. No. The Director General's position is not coterminous with anything.
I am happy you are defending this because you work there more than most people. So most of us will defer to you. But we also want to understand the reasoning behind the proposals. And we don't want to rubbish it on the basis that it's a lack of understanding. There is a strong perception around political taintedness of institutions, which sometimes these proposals try to address. So I feel like we need to admit that. I'm not saying I agree with them, but you need to see where they are coming from, what they are trying to solve. Oliver, what do you think?
So I think that to have a sense of the way in which this committee dealt with appointments generally, you need to look at the executive chapter that they drafted, where they try to provide some theory to rationalize how executive appointments are made, who are purely executive decisions, where there's a hybrid decision that requires a policymaker or a political decision, and where it is a completely technocratic. So they're trying to balance those when it comes to commissions like this and deal with that perception problem. Now, when you have technocratic committees, one of the biggest difficulties is that a lot of the time the technocrats don't come out and speak to and justify it to the public. The politicians do. And when they do that, they own the process. So what they are suggesting here is that, okay, if we can re-engineer the composition in a way that people don't perceive it as executive dominated, then perhaps we can push this through. And then we can reduce that perception around it. But the point around the flexibility, I think that issue is already solved on so many levels. One, if you go to the Council of State, they can co-opt and bring in people to help with their work in the same way as you acknowledge in the Act, that it doesn't take away that provision in the Act that allows you to co-opt people to bring them, to help them form technical committees and work within that infrastructure. Now, one of the good things about a committee putting out these ideas is that we ought to be aligned on the why. Exactly. Once we align on the why, then in terms of the tweaking of who falls in there, it's something that again can be negotiated through the process of how we bring it to life.
Proposal,
Last point: decentralization and local governance. I think we had many, but we create an independent devolution commission, deepen political and fiscal decentralization, which is very broad. Review the election and tenure of MMDAs in 2 minutes. What do you mean by that? Are you saying we should vote for them on partisan basis? Did you make
We are proposing that we move towards election of MMDCs.
Okay.
However, we are saying that it should be done it should be phased in.
Okay.
It should be done incrementally.
Okay.
Currently, we have 261 districts. How we came by the number is important, right? So we don't think that those numbers necessarily reflect the many of these districts. We traveled around the country. Many of these districts are not viable. They didn't even pass their own statutory economic viability test, but they were created nonetheless, right? So we identified politics as a big part of the problem with our decentralization in terms of just the minting of districts. So we've parceled the states up, we've cut it up in into so many slices that really many of them are not viable as we speak. Politically, it's going to be difficult once you've given somebody a district to go and say you have lost it. But we're saying if we're going to move forward with devolution and with election, then we should use that moment to rationalize the numbers. What do we mean by that? I'm not very familiar with how the UK does it, but I have learned in the course of this process that even in the UK, it's not every city or town that gets to elect its mayor. that there is a process, there are certain criteria defined, and then when you meet that benchmark, then you can graduate into the status, and then you can elect your mayor like London or Bristol, or however you do it. We're saying that a devolution commission should be in place that will actually manage this process and roll out the implementation of the devolution plan, so that we can then say, okay, maybe cities or towns that meet this population threshold, X percentage of the Ghanaian population, maybe this tax base,
they then can vote.
They then can begin to vote, because we're also saying that once you start to vote to elect your mayor, it's connected to certain fiscal decentralization arrangements. We think that we should begin to force our cities with viable local economies to actually raise
Accra,
taxes.
Kumasi, Tema,
They should be responsible
vote for your mayor,
their own.
pay for your own
Yes, you pay.
rubbish.
Yeah.
You don't need district assembly common fund.
No, you will probably need it, but for earmark, it's not for recurrent expenditure.
Wonderful.
You should pay your salaries from your collection, right? Because unless and until we put in some of these kinds of rules and requirements, our district assemblies will just not collect. If you are sitting there and you are still relying on consolidated fund to pay you every month, when your collections in Accra are so low, I mean, look at all of this real estate boom in the last 20, 30
Still
years.
not enough revenue.
And you are still not generating enough revenue. Like generating.
Do you agree with this proposal?
No, I do, yes. I mean, I think the point where they try to tie it into the fiscal is also quite important. So they're saying that ultimately, for you to then become able to elect, you must meet certain fiscal